Hey, I'm really glad you're here. Take a moment to get comfortable wherever you are. Let your shoulders relax and let the day gently fall away. You don't need to do anything right now. Just listen and let the story unfold at its own pace. Whenever you're ready, we'll begin.
The moonlit voyage of Captain Serene. The night the silver moon chose the sea. The night did not arrive suddenly, as storms do, nor did it creep timidly like a thief. It came with ceremony, slow and deliberate, as if the world itself had been waiting all day for the hour when the silver moon would rise and claim dominion over sea and sky alike. Winter had already settled into the bones of the harbor town, laying frost upon rooftops and silence upon the narrow stone streets. Chimneys breathed gentle smoke, and windows glowed with amber light, but beyond the last lantern post, the sea waited in solemn darkness, patient and wide. Above it all, the moon climbed, round and pale, its light softer than fire yet stronger than shadow. It brushed the clouds aside with quiet authority and painted a trembling road of silver upon the water. Fishermen paused in their steps, innkeepers leaned out of doors, and even the harbor cats lifted their heads, for nights like this were rare. Old sailors would later say that the moon did not merely shine that evening, it chose. At the far end of the pier stood a ship unlike any other moored in the harbor. Its hull was dark, almost black, yet polished smooth by years of careful tending. Frost traced delicate patterns along its railings, and its mast rose like a silent tower against the sky. Lanterns hung along its sides, unlit for now, as if waiting for a signal only they could recognize. Carved into the stern in letters worn but proud was its name, Serenity's Wake. Beside the gangplank stood Captain Serene. He was not tall, nor broad, nor particularly striking at first glance. His hair, silvered by age rather than fashion, fell neatly to his shoulders beneath a wool-lined captain's coat. His face bore the lines of a life lived in open air and long thought, creased by wind and reflection rather than hardship. His eyes, however, were something else entirely. They held the calm of deep water and the patience of old stars, reflecting the moonlight as if it belonged there. Captain Serene rested one gloved hand upon the ship's rail, feeling the familiar chill seep through leather and into memory. He had stood at this very place on countless nights, yet tonight felt different. The air itself seemed to hum, thin and bright, like a held breath. The moon's reflection aligned perfectly with the ship's bow, a silver path leading outward, beyond the harbor mouth and into the unknown winter sea. "It seems," he murmured softly, "more to the night than to anyone else, that you are ready." The ship did not answer, yet the wood beneath his hand creaked gently, settling, as if acknowledging the words. Behind him, the harbor town lay quiet. Most had already retired for the night, wrapped in blankets and routine, but a few figures lingered at a respectful distance. An old dockmaster leaned on his staff, pretending to inspect ropes while watching closely. A baker's boy, sent on an errand long finished, lingered near a stack of crates. They all knew Captain Serene, and they all knew his voyages were unlike others. He sailed not for trade, nor conquest, nor glory. He sailed when the night called, and he returned when the sea was finished speaking. A church bell tolled somewhere uphill, its sound slow and measured. 10 strokes. True night had begun. Captain Serene straightened, drawing his coat tighter against the cold. Winter nights had always been his favorite. The cold sharpened thought, cleared distraction, and made every sound meaningful. The sea in winter did not chatter. It spoke only when it had something worth saying. He stepped onto the gangplank, boots ringing softly against the wood. Each step felt ceremonial, as though the act of boarding were a vow renewed. At the top, he paused and turned, casting one last glance toward the town. The windows glowed like distant embers, warm and safe. For a moment, he allowed himself a small smile. He had known that warmth once, long ago, and he knew it would be there when he returned. That knowledge made leaving easier. On deck, the ship awaited him in perfect stillness. No crew moved about, no ropes were being hauled, no sails unfurled. To an untrained eye, the vessel might have seemed abandoned. Yet Captain Serene knew better. His ship required no shouted orders, no frantic preparation. It moved in harmony, awakening slowly as living things do. He crossed to the center of the deck and removed his gloves, tucking them carefully into his coat. Placing both hands upon the cold wood, he closed his eyes. The moonlight washed over him, pale and steady. "Tonight," he said quietly, "we sail." A soft shudder ran through the hull, not violent but deliberate. One by one, the lanterns along the ship's sides flickered to life, their flames steady despite the cold. The light reflected off the frost, turning the deck into a scatter of quiet stars. Somewhere below, a rope loosened itself, then another, slipping free of their posts with gentle sighs. The dockmaster straightened, eyes widening, though he had seen this before. "Safe tides, Captain," he called softly, his voice carrying over the water. Captain Serene opened his eyes and inclined his head in acknowledgement. "And calm nights to you," he replied. The ship began to move, not pulled, not pushed, but guided. Slowly, almost reverently, Serenity's wake drifted away from the pier, its bow aligning perfectly with the moonlit path upon the sea. The harbor accepted this without protest. The water barely rippled, as if unwilling to disturb the moment. As the ship passed the last lantern of the pier, Captain Serene felt the familiar shift within himself. The land's concerns loosened their hold, replaced by a widening quiet. Each voyage began this way, with a gentle unburdening. The titles, histories, expectations, all fell away, leaving only the present and the promise of the night ahead. The sails unfurled on their own, pale cloth catching the moonlight and turning almost translucent. A breeze rose, soft and cold, scented with salt and distant snow. It filled the sails not with force, but with purpose, carrying the ship forward along its silver road. Beyond the harbor mouth, the sea opened wide. Winter had smoothed it into something vast and contemplative. The waves rolled low and steady, their crests glowing faintly as the moon passed over them. Clouds drifted high above, thin and slow, like thoughts unwilling to interrupt. Stars shone clearly, sharp points of ancient light, watching as they always had. And Captain Serene took his place at the helm, fingers resting lightly against the worn wood. He did not steer so much as listen. The ship responded to intention more readily than command, adjusting its course with subtle shifts, always aligned with the moon's guidance. As the distance from shore grew, the sounds of the town faded entirely. No bells, no voices, no echoes of warmth. Only the sea remained, breathing softly, and the whisper of wind through sailcloth. The captain exhaled, long and slow. Memories stirred, as they often did at the beginning of a voyage. Not sharp or insistent, but gentle, like snow settling upon old footprints. He remembered his first winter night at sea, decades ago, when he had still believed every journey required a destination. He smiled faintly at the thought. The sea had taught him otherwise patiently over many years. A faint glow appeared along the horizon, not dawn, but something older. A reflection of moonlight against distant ice, perhaps, or the quiet shimmer of fog yet to come. The sea carried secrets on nights like this, and Captain Serene felt no urgency to uncover them. He trusted they would reveal themselves in time. The ship sailed on, steady and sure, its lanterns casting warm halos upon the deck. The frost formed delicate patterns along the railings, but the wood beneath remained sound, alive with quiet strength. Every creak and sigh were familiar, comforting. Above, the moon reached its highest point, reigning in full brilliance. Its light deepened the shadows rather than banishing them, giving the night dimension and grace. The silver path upon the water stretched endlessly forward, inviting but never demanding. Captain Serene adjusted his stance slightly, feeling the rhythm of the ship beneath his boots. His breath matched the rise and fall of the waves. Somewhere within that rhythm lay the reason he sailed, though he had long since stopped trying to name it. He looked ahead, eyes calm, heart steady. The voyage had begun, and the sea, chosen by moonlight, was ready to remember. Captain Serene and the ship that never slept. The sea accepted the ship as it accepts all things that arrive without arrogance. Serenity's wake glided forward, its hull cutting the moonlit water with neither haste nor hesitation, leaving behind a wake so smooth it seemed the sea wished to forget it had ever been disturbed. And Captain Serene felt this approval in the way the deck settled beneath his feet, in the steady confidence of the mast, and in the quiet harmony of every moving part. This was a ship that did not sleep, yet it never tired, and it followed the rhythms of night as naturally as breathing. Winter deepened as the shore vanished completely, swallowed by distance and darkness. The cold grew sharper, more honest, slipping through wool and leather until it reached skin and bone. Captain Serene welcomed it. Cold like this did not seek to harm, it sought to awaken. It reminded a sailor that he was alive, present, and very small beneath the great sky unfolding above. He moved along the deck, lantern light accompanying him like a loyal companion. Each plank knew his step, answering with a familiar sound, neither complaint nor greeting, but recognition. He had walked this ship through decades of nights, through calm seas and whispered storms, through fog so thick it felt like memory itself had condensed into air. The ship had changed, as all living things do, but it had never forgotten him. Near the bow, Captain Serene paused and rested his hands against the rail. The moon's reflection stretched forward endlessly, a pale road leading nowhere and everywhere at once. Stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt, ancient and unblinking. Somewhere far above, constellations traced stories older than language, and Captain Serene felt no need to name them. Their presence was enough. He listened. The ship spoke in ways few could hear, not with words, but with balance, with subtle shifts in tension and motion. A slight lean to port suggested curiosity. A steady forward pull spoke of confidence. Tonight, the ship felt attentive, awake in a way that went beyond readiness. "You sense it too," he said softly. The wind brushed past his ear in reply, carrying with it the faintest hint of something distant, ice perhaps, or fog, or simply the promise of night unfolding further. Captain Serene smiled. Many believed the sea to be empty in winter, stripped of color and voice, but those who truly listened knew better. Winter did not silence the world, it refined it. Below deck, the ship's heart stirred. And Captain Serene felt it rather than heard it, a low, steady presence, like a slow drumbeat beneath the wood. He descended the narrow stairs, lantern in hand, each step taking him deeper into the familiar warmth of polished timber and old iron. The lower deck was tidy and spare. No clutter, no excess. Every object had purpose, every rope coiled with care. Frost traced the inside of the portholes in delicate, branching patterns, framing the moonlit sea beyond like living art. The lantern light danced gently, casting shadows that shifted but never startled. At the center stood the long table where charts were kept, not maps in the usual sense, but something older. Their lines did not mark borders or depths alone, but moods of water, remembered currents, and places where the sea had once spoken more loudly. Captain Serene unrolled one carefully, smoothing it with practiced hands. The markings glowed faintly, responding to the moon above. He traced a path with his finger, slow and thoughtful. It was not a route he had planned, nor one he had avoided. It was simply one that had appeared, as such things often did, when the night deemed it time. "So," he murmured, "you wish to be remembered." The ship responded with a subtle vibration, barely noticeable but unmistakable to him. Captain Serene nodded once, decision made not by logic but by alignment. He rolled the chart closed and secured it, knowing he would not need to consult it again. The sea would guide them now. Returning to the deck, he found the air thicker, touched with the first breath of fog. It crept low over the water, curling and thinning, never obscuring entirely, as if uncertain how boldly it should announce itself. The lanterns glowed warmer against it, halos of amber floating in silver air. Captain Serene adjusted one lantern's wick, more out of habit than necessity. The ship did not require light to see, but light made the night feel companionable. He believed strongly in small kindnesses, even toward vessels and seas. As hours passed, the night settled fully into itself. The time lost its sharp edges. There was no urgency, no count of bells beyond those that mattered. Captain Serene allowed himself a moment of stillness at the helm, hands resting lightly, eyes half-lidded. Memories came again, gentle as falling snow. He remembered the day he had first set foot on this ship, young and uncertain, believing command was something taken rather than given. The ship had been patient with him then, teaching him that leadership was listening, that strength was quiet, and that the sea rewarded respect more than bravery. The faint sound reached him, soft, rhythmic, almost like humming. He turned his head slightly, listening more closely. It came from everywhere and nowhere, woven into the wind and the watcher alike. Not a song exactly, but the suggestion of one. The ship leaned subtly toward the sound, eager. "Yes," Captain Serene whispered. "I hear it too." The fog thickened, rising higher now, brushing against the hull. The stars dimmed behind veils of silver, though the moon remained visible, its glow diffused into something gentler, dreamlike. The world narrowed to lantern light, breath, and the soft glide of wood through water. Captain Serene felt a familiar joy bloom quietly in his chest. This was why he sailed. Not for destinations, nor discoveries, but for these moments when the night leaned close and shared its secrets in half-remembered tones. The ship did not sleep, and neither, tonight, did the sea. The humming did not grow louder, yet it grew clearer, as though the night itself had decided Captain Serene was ready to notice it fully. It threaded through the fog like a silver filament, never demanding attention, only inviting it. He kept his hands steady on the helm, trusting the ship to respond as it always had, not to sound, but to intention. Serenity's wake adjusted her course by the smallest margin, so slight it would have escaped any eye less familiar. The fog welcomed this change, parting gently ahead of the bow, revealing water that glimmered faintly beneath the moon's softened gaze. The sea here felt different, older, slower, as if it remembered things the open water had long since let go. Captain Serene drew his coat closer, not from cold, but from a sense of reverence. Places like this were not marked on charts meant for trade or war. They revealed themselves only to those who did not seek to claim them. The ship's lanterns reflected in the fog, creating the illusion of many vessels sailing alongside, ghostly companions made of light and breath. Captain Serene observed them with a faint smile. He had learned long ago not to dismiss such visions, nor to cling to them. They were simply part of the night's language. A soft creak rose from the mast, not strain, but communication. The sail shifted, easing, allowing the ship to slow without stopping. The water beneath them became almost glass-like, each ripple spreading with deliberate grace before fading back into stillness. Captain Serene closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered a winter long past when he had sailed with a full crew, voices filling the night with laughter and song. He remembered the warmth of shared bread, the clatter of mugs, the way stories grew larger as the cold deepened. Those days were gone, not lost, but completed. The sea had carried them gently away, leaving him with quieter company now. Opening his eyes, he found no sadness waiting for him, only peace. The humming shifted, resolving into something like a rhythm, slow, patient, unmistakably deliberate. It reminded him of the old monastery bells that once rang near his childhood home, bells that spoke not to summon but to remind, of time, of presence, of listening. "You've been here a long while," he said softly to the sea. The water answered by lifting slightly against the hull, a gentle acknowledgement. Captain Serene felt the response through his boots, through the wood, through the calm center of his chest. This was not a conversation of words, but of mutual recognition. Snow began to fall. At first, only a few flakes drifted down, hesitant and sparse, melting as they touched the warmer surfaces of sail and deck. Soon, however, they grew more confident, filling the air with slow, spiraling motion. Each flake caught the lantern light briefly before vanishing, leaving behind a sense of quiet celebration. Winter had fully claimed the night now. Captain Serene moved from the helm, letting the ship maintain her course. He walked the deck slowly, savoring the sound of snow settling, the faint crunch beneath his steps. He paused near the bow and leaned forward slightly, watching flakes dissolve upon the sea, each disappearance a tiny, complete ending. The fog thinned just enough for stars to reappear, faint but steady, watching through the snowfall like patient eyes. The moon glowed behind a veil of cloud, its light softened into something tender and forgiving. The humming deepened. This time, Captain Serene recognized it not as sound alone, but as memory rising. Not his own memories, but the sea's, layered, overlapping, vast. He felt impressions rather than images. Ships that had passed this way centuries ago. Sailors who had stood at their bows with hope or fear or simple curiosity. Nights when the water had carried secrets gently and nights when it had kept them. He placed his hand upon the rail, fingers numb with cold, and breathed slowly. "I remember," he said, though he could not have said what. The ship answered by settling further, almost as if sitting down upon the water. Forward motion slowed to a drifting glide, neither stopped nor hurried. The time itself seemed to loosen, stretching like warm wax. Captain Serene realized then that Serenity's wake truly never slept. Even now, in near stillness, she listened, learned, remembered. Her timbers held the echoes of every voyage, every night like this one. She was not merely a vessel, but a witness. Snow gathered lightly along the railings now, outlining the ship in white. The lanterns glowed steadily, refusing to flicker, their flames unwavering in quiet defiance of cold and damp. Captain Serene adjusted his coat again and laughed softly, a sound quickly absorbed by fog and falling snow. "You enjoy this," he said to the ship. The deck creaked in what might have been agreement. Hours passed, or perhaps moments. Captain Serene no longer measured. He stood beneath the snowfall, beneath the veiled moon, feeling neither young nor old, but precisely where he was meant to be. The world beyond this small circle of light and listening felt distant, unreal. Eventually, the humming began to fade, not vanishing, but settling back into the background of water and wind. The fog loosened its hold, thinning gradually, revealing more of the moonlit sea ahead. The ship responded at once, sails filling gently forward motion, returning with calm assurance. Captain Serene returned to the helm, hands warm despite the cold. He felt rested, as though he had slept deeply without ever closing his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly. The sea replied with silence, the kind that follows understanding. Ahead, the silver path stretched onward once more, uninterrupted, inviting without urgency. Snow continued to fall, lighter now, drifting lazily, content to accompany rather than command. The ship sailed on, awake and attentive, carrying its captain through a winter night that had given freely and asked for nothing in return. And above them, the moon watched, patient and pleased, as the voyage continued toward whatever memory waited next. Lanterns on the water and whispers in the wind. The snowfall thinned until it became more memory than presence, leaving the air clear and sharp once again. Serenity's wake moved steadily onward, her lanterns glowing like patient stars tethered to wood and sail. Each lantern cast a soft, circular pool of light upon the deck, and beyond those circles lay the vastness of night, kind, listening, and unafraid. Captain Serene stood at the helm, his breath rising in pale clouds that dissolved almost as soon as they appeared. The sea ahead stretched wide and open, yet it no longer felt empty. Something had changed. The night, having spoken, now lingered closer, attentive in a new way. The wind shifted. It did not strengthen, nor did it fade. Instead, it altered its voice. Where before it had brushed past with the neutrality of passing air, now it carried texture. Soft syllables formed not of words, but of intention. Captain Serene turned his head slightly, angling his ear, as one does when listening to a story told just beyond the edge of hearing. The ship responded instantly. A subtle tightening of rope, a minute adjustment of sail, and suddenly the lantern light stretched farther across the water, illuminating shapes that had not been there before. Lanterns, not his own, but others, dozens of them, floating low upon the sea, each casting a small, warm glow. They drifted in loose formation, rising and falling with the gentle swell, their reflections trembling like thoughts half-remembered. Captain Serene felt no alarm, surprise perhaps, but no fear. He had seen such things before, though never in quite this arrangement. The lanterns on the water were not uncommon on winter nights, but these did not belong to fishermen or passing vessels. There were no hulls beneath them, no sails above. They simply were. The ship slowed of her own accord, gliding into their midst with reverent care. The lanterns parted smoothly, creating a path, as though recognizing Serenity's wake as kin. Captain Serene removed one hand from the helm and raised it slightly, a gesture not of command, but greeting. "Good evening," he said quietly. The wind answered, swirling gently around the ship, carrying with it the faintest sound, something between a sigh and a whisper. The lanterns bobbed in response, their flames steady, unwavering. Each lantern was different. Some were simple, their glass plain and clear. Others bore intricate metalwork, delicate patterns that cast shifting shadows upon the water. A few were old, their frames darkened by time, their light softer, more subdued. Captain Serene leaned forward slightly, studying them. He sensed no urgency, no warning, only remembrance. "These are not for guiding," he murmured. "They are for witnessing." The realization settled comfortably within him. Lanterns like these did not mark routes or signal danger. They marked moments, events the sea had chosen to remember, preserved not in stone or ink, but in light and quiet persistence. As the ship passed among them, Captain Serene noticed faint images within the lantern glass. Not clear pictures, but impressions. A hand gripping a rail, a face lifted toward stars, a tear falling unnoticed into salt water. Each lantern held a fragment of a story, complete in itself, needing no explanation. The wind whispered again, this time closer, brushing his cheek like a familiar touch. He closed his eyes briefly, allowing the sound to wash through him. The whisper carried no language he knew, yet he understood it all the same. "You are welcome to listen." "I always am," he replied. The ship drifted deeper into the lantern field. Time slowed, stretching thin and gentle. The moon remained high above, its light mingling with the lantern glow until sea and sky seemed stitched together by silver and gold. Captain Serene felt a warmth spread through him, beginning in his chest and radiating outward. Not heat, but connection. The lanterns did not demand memory. They offered it freely, trusting him to receive without judgment. One lantern drifted closer than the others, its light brighter, steadier. Captain Serene watched as it rose and fell beside the ship, matching her rhythm perfectly. He sensed familiarity there, not recognition of a specific moment, but of a feeling long carried. "You were kind," he said softly, unsure to whom he spoke. The lantern's flame flickered once, gently, in agreement. The wind shifted again, bringing with it the scent of old wood, tar, and distant shores long since changed. Captain Serene breathed deeply, letting the night fill him. He thought of all the sailors who had passed through winter seas believing themselves alone, never knowing how carefully they had been observed, how tenderly their courage had been remembered. The lanterns began to thin, drifting away one by one, their task complete. They did not extinguish, they simply moved elsewhere, carried by currents unseen. Soon only a handful remained, and then only one, the familiar lantern floating quietly astern. Captain Serene turned the helm slightly, offering it a chance to follow. It did not. Instead, it dipped once, flame steady, and drifted off into the moonlit distance, its reflection stretching and thinning until it merged with the silver path upon the sea. The wind sighed, content. The ship resumed her steady pace, sails filling gently. The deck felt warmer now, though the air remained cold. Captain Serene rested both hands upon the helm, feeling the subtle confidence of the vessel beneath him. "You heard them too," he said to the ship. The response came not in sound, but in smooth forward motion, assured and calm. The whispers faded gradually, dissolving back into wind and wave. Yet their presence lingered, woven into the night like a quiet promise. Captain Serene knew this feeling well, the sense of having been trusted with something precious, not to carry forward, but simply to have known. Stars brightened as clouds parted, revealing a sky deep and endless. The moon shone clearly once more, its reflection reclaiming the water ahead. Winter had sharpened the world into clarity, leaving no excess, no noise. Captain Serene allowed himself a small, genuine smile. The voyage continued, richer now, layered with unspoken stories and gentle understanding. Ahead lay more night, more listening, and the certainty that the sea, having begun to remember, was far from finished. The first bell at the edge of the known world, the sea widened. Not in distance alone, but in feeling. As Serenity's wake advanced, the water seemed to stretch outward, as though the night itself had taken a breath and made room for what was to come. The moon remained bright and centered above the mast, yet its reflection fractured now, splitting into countless ribbons that drifted and rejoined with every gentle rise of the waves. Captain Serene felt the change before he saw it. There was a subtle loosening beneath his feet, a shift in the ship's balance that spoke of boundaries thinning. This was not the edge of danger, nor of discovery in the usual sense. It was the edge of certainty. He straightened at the helm, eyes forward. Winter's cold grew deeper here, cleaner, as if untouched by land or memory. The wind moved differently too, less like air in motion and more like presence passing through. It carried no scent now, only clarity. The lanterns along the ship's sides dimmed slightly, responding not to failing flame, but to the night's request for restraint. Captain Serene nodded in approval. There were places where too much light was a kind of rudeness. Ahead, the water darkened, losing some of its reflective sheen. The silver road thinned until it became a narrow thread, fragile and precise. Beyond it lay a stretch of sea that seemed almost matte, absorbing moonlight rather than reflecting it. Captain Serene had sailed here before, only once, many years ago. He had been younger then, less practiced in listening, yet the memory returned to him clearly now, rising like a bell tone held in the chest. "Easy," he murmured to the ship. Serenity's wake responded at once, her pace slowing, her posture attentive. The sails eased, catching just enough wind to carry them forward without insistence. The sea accepted this adjustment, smoothing itself into long, patient swells. Then came the sound, a bell. It rang not loudly, nor sharply, but with a depth that seemed to resonate through water and bone alike. The tone was low and steady, its echo unfolding slowly, like ripples spreading from a single drop. Captain Serene closed his eyes. He did not need to ask what bell this was. There were many bells in the world, those that called sailors home, those that warned of rocks or storms, those that marked time in ports and monasteries. This bell did none of those things. This bell marked a crossing. The sound came again, slightly nearer, though no source was visible. It did not demand response, it simply announced presence. The night seemed to hold itself still to listen. Captain Serene rested one hand upon the helm and lifted the other, palm open, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than greeting. "I hear you," he said softly. The bell rang a third time. With it came a sensation not of movement, but of arrival. The ship did not lurch or sway, yet Captain Serene felt as though they had passed through a veil thinner than breath. The air felt different now, lighter though colder, carrying a faint resonance that lingered after the bell's echo faded. The stars above appeared sharper, more precise, as if newly arranged. Constellations shifted subtly, not in position, but in emphasis, certain patterns standing out while others receded. Captain Serene studied them, recognizing shapes not marked in any book. The sea beneath them glowed faintly now, not with reflected moonlight, but from within. Soft pulses of pale blue and silver shimmered below the surface, rising and falling in slow rhythm. It was not bioluminescence as he had known it, but something calmer, more deliberate. Memory, perhaps. The ship drifted onward, her lanterns glowing just enough to outline her form against the night. And Captain Serene felt a deep, quiet joy settle within him, not excitement, not triumph, but the satisfaction of having arrived exactly where he was meant to be. "This is far enough for some," he said to the empty deck, "and just the beginning for others." The bell rang once more, softer this time, as if in agreement. Captain Serene released a slow breath. He remembered standing at a harbor long ago, listening to bells mark hours he believed were slipping away. How different this bell was. It did not count time. It opened it. The ship's hull hummed faintly, resonating with the lingering tone. Captain Serene ran his hand along the rail, feeling the vibration fade into stillness. He sensed no threat here, no test to be overcome, only choice. The sea ahead remained open, waiting. Behind them, the water looked unchanged, the silver path intact, leading back toward the familiar. There was no sense of closure, no gate swinging shut. One could return at any moment if one wished. Captain Serene smiled. "I suppose," he said gently, "we continue." The ship responded at once, sails filling slightly, forward motion resuming with calm assurance. The bell did not ring again. Its work was done. As they moved deeper into this widened night, the moon shifted just enough to cast new shadows across the deck. Frost traced fresh patterns along the railings, delicate and precise. The cold felt less like burden and more like clarity, sharpening every sensation. Captain Serene adjusted his stance, feeling the ship settle beneath him, perfectly balanced between what was known and what was becoming. He felt neither urgency nor hesitation. The edge had been crossed, and the voyage, now unbound by certainty, stretched onward beneath a sky that seemed to watch with quiet approval. Fog-bound hours beneath a listening sky. The fog returned without announcement, as such things often do when they are meant to stay. It rose not from the sea alone, but from the space between moments, filling the widened world with a quiet, breathing presence. Serenity's wake entered it gently, her lanterns glowing like careful thoughts, never pushing, never scattering the silver veil. Captain Serene welcomed the fog as one welcomes an old companion. Fog demanded patience, and patience had long been his truest skill. It did not obscure the world so much as soften it, removing edges, inviting trust over sight. The moon dimmed behind the mist, its light diffused into a broad, luminous hush. Shadows lost their sharpness. Sound traveled differently now, each creak and sigh lingering longer than expected, as if the air itself wished to consider them before letting them go. Captain Serene rested both hands upon the helm, feeling the ship's steady certainty beneath him. Though visibility shortened to only a few lengths of deck and water, he felt no need to slow further. The ship knew this place. More than that, it listened. Above the fog, unseen yet unmistakably present, the sky waited. Captain Serene felt it watching, not with judgment, but with attention. Some skies merely covered the world. This one listened. The wind quieted, leaving behind a stillness so complete it felt intentional. Even the sea gentled itself, waves flattening into long, slow undulations that carried the ship forward with a rocking motion more felt than seen. Time softened. Hours passed, or perhaps only one. Captain Serene did not mark them. He let them drift, each moment folding neatly into the next like pages read without haste. The fog thickened, then thinned, then thickened again, breathing in rhythm with the water. At intervals, faint shapes appeared within it, suggestions rather than forms. Was a curve of shadow that might have been a distant wave crest or something else entirely. A brief gleam of reflected lantern light where no lantern floated. Captain Serene observed without reacting, allowing each impression to pass unchallenged. "You may show me," he said quietly, "or not." The fog approved of this answer. The ship creaked softly, not in strain but in contentment. Her timbers warmed beneath Captain Serene's boots, holding the quiet like a shared secret. He felt the subtle hum of her awareness, steady and constant. From somewhere above, beyond sight, came a sound like cloth shifting, clouds moving perhaps, or the sky adjusting its weight. Captain Serene lifted his gaze, though there was nothing to see but pale silver depth. "Still listening," he murmured. The fog responded by parting briefly, opening a narrow window upward. Through it, a scatter of stars appeared, distant but bright, like pinpricks in dark velvet. They did not move, did not flicker. They simply watched, Captain Serene felt a warmth bloom behind his ribs. Not excitement, not awe, but recognition. These were not stars that demanded stories. They were stars that remembered them. The opening closed again, fog folding back into itself, leaving behind the impression of having been seen and accepted. The ship sailed on. Captain Serene walked the deck slowly, checking nothing, touching everything. A coil of rope here, smooth and ready. A lantern there, flame steady, wick trimmed. Each small detail grounded him in the present, anchoring thought to action. As he reached the bow, he noticed the water had changed color. Beneath the fog, it glowed faintly, not blue as before, but a soft, pearlescent white, like moonlight filtered through snow. The glow pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of the ship. The sea was listening too. Captain Serene leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on the rail. The cold seeped through his sleeves, sharp and clean. He welcomed it, breathing deeply, letting the chill sharpen his senses. Memories stirred, not specific ones, but a layering of past nights, past fogs, past moments when the world had narrowed and expanded at once. He remembered standing on decks long gone, under skies that no longer existed in the same way, listening just as he listened now. Some things, he realized, did not age. The fog grew denser again, wrapping the ship fully. Sound dampened further, until even the water's movement became a suggestion rather than a presence. Captain Serene felt as though they sailed within a thought rather than a place. Then, very softly, the fog spoke. Not aloud, not in language, but in pressure and absence. The gentle tightening around the ship, followed by release. A pause where something might have been said, followed by quiet acceptance. Captain Serene responded in the same way, by allowing. He loosened his grip on the helm, trusting the ship to maintain her course. He slowed his breathing, letting it fall into harmony with the surrounding stillness. The fog seemed to brighten slightly, pleased. Above, the listening sky shifted. Captain Serene sensed movement, vast, deliberate. Clouds rearranged themselves beyond sight, opening and closing paths of unseen starlight. The sky was not passive. It participated. A single snowflake drifted down, melting as it touched the deck. Then another. Soon a gentle fall resumed, lighter than before, each flake slow and deliberate, as though choosing where to land. The fog thinned just enough for the moon to reappear as a pale disk, its edges blurred, its light softened to kindness. The silver road returned, not straight now, but winding slightly, adapting to the sea's contours. Captain Serene returned to the helm, hands steady, heart full. He felt no need to hurry the moment. Fog-bound hours were not meant to be measured. They were meant to be inhabited. "You are doing well," he said quietly, unsure whether he spoke to the ship, the sea, or himself. All three seemed to agree. The fog began, slowly, respectfully, to lift, not vanishing, but retreating, leaving behind a world sharpened by quiet and understanding. The listening sky remained above, stars watching through thinning veils, moon steady and pale. Serenity's wake sailed onward. carrying within her timbers the memory of hours spent unseen, unheard by the world, yet deeply known. And as the fog released them fully, Captain Serene knew the night had not finished speaking. It had only begun to trust when the ocean began to remember. The sea changed its breathing. It was a subtle shift, barely perceptible, yet unmistakable to Captain Serene. The long, even swells softened, shortening their rhythm, as if the water were turning inward, listening to something far below its surface. Serenity's wake responded at once, her hull settling lower, not with weight, but with intention, as though she too had leaned closer. The fog had fully lifted now, leaving the world sharp and open once more. As the moon hung lower in the sky, its light richer, warmer, as though it had gathered something from the hours behind the veil. Stars gleamed brightly, no longer distant witnesses, but participants in what was unfolding. Captain Serene felt it then, a gentle pressure beneath his feet, like a thought rising slowly from sleep. The ocean was remembering. He rested one hand upon the rail, the other steady on the helm. The wood felt warm, alive with quiet energy. The sea beneath them shimmered faintly, pulses of light moving in deep, deliberate currents, far below the surface yet clearly felt. "You have been holding this a long time," he said softly. The water answered by lifting slightly against the hull, not as a wave, but as presence. Captain Serene felt the response travel through the ship and into his bones, carrying with it impressions too broad for words. The sea remembered first light falling upon itself when there was no shore to reflect it. It remembered ice forming and retreating in patient cycles. It remembered ships that crossed its face believing themselves the first, and others that crossed knowing they were not. These memories did not arrive as images, but as sensations: weight, cold, warmth, release. Captain Serene closed his eyes, allowing them to pass through him without resistance. Serenity's wake hummed softly, a low vibration that matched the ocean's rhythm. Lanterns brightened in response, their light deepening, as though fed from within rather than from flame alone. The deck glowed faintly, etched with patterns not carved by hand, but by repetition and care. Captain Serene felt joy then, quiet, complete, and unexpected. Not joy at discovery, but at recognition. To remember was not to cling to the past. It was to acknowledge continuity. The sea's glow intensified, rising closer to the surface. Shapes formed briefly beneath the water, suggestions of currents long shifted, of icebergs drifting under older stars, of shorelines that no longer existed. Each impression lingered just long enough to be felt, then dissolved, making room for the next. Captain Serene breathed slowly, steadying himself within the flow. He felt no need to separate himself from the memory. For this moment, he was simply another vessel through which the ocean spoke. "You are not alone in this," he said, voice barely above the water's hush. The ship creaked softly, affirming. She had carried these memories, too, layered within her timbers, gathered from every voyage. Wood and water shared more than the world suspected. the moonlight shifted, aligning once more with the ship's bow. The silver path ahead gleamed brighter now, infused with depth and color, as though the sea had polished it with remembrance. Captain Serene opened his eyes. The world appeared richer, sharper. Every ripple held meaning. Every breath of wind carried nuance. Even the cold felt purposeful, a reminder of boundaries that gave shape to warmth. From deep below came a sound, low, resonant, not quite a voice, not quite a note. It was the ocean's way of marking this moment, of sealing memory gently rather than loudly. Captain Serene placed both hands upon the helm, grounding himself. He did not bow nor speak further. Some exchanges did not require closing words. Gradually, the glow beneath the water softened, receding, settling back into depth. The sea's breathing lengthened once more, returning to its earlier rhythm, though something remained changed. The ocean had remembered, and in remembering it had shared. The ship moved forward, steady and assured. Lanterns returned to their usual warmth. As the deck cooled slightly beneath Captain Serene's boots, returning to the familiar balance of night sailing. He felt lighter now, though he could not have said why. Perhaps memory, when acknowledged, no longer needed to be carried. Ahead, the horizon hinted at something new, a faint line where moonlight met water in an unfamiliar way. Not land, not fog, but possibility. Captain Serene smiled, small and genuine. "Onward," he said quietly. The sea agreed, carrying them forward with calm confidence, its long memory now awake and content, ready to shape what came next. Stars reflected in still, breathing waves. The sea grew still. Not motionless, but composed, each wave rising and falling with such gentleness that the surface appeared to breathe rather than move. Serenity's wake glided across it as if upon glass, her passage marked only by a faint shimmer that slowly healed behind her. Above, the sky had cleared entirely. No fog, no cloud, no veil remained between earth and stars. They shone with ancient precision, each point of light distinct, unwavering, as though the heavens had leaned closer to observe the quiet work of the water below. Captain Serene stood at the helm, unhurried, feeling the rare balance settle around him. This was a moment sailors spoke of only in fragments, for to describe it fully felt like breaking something delicate. The night was complete in itself, requiring no commentary. The stars began to appear upon the sea. At first, only a few, faint pinpricks trembling beneath the surface, mirroring those above. Then more followed, until the water became a living sky, holding light with reverent care. The boundary between above and below softened, stitched together by reflection and stillness. Captain Serene inhaled slowly. "This is one of your favorite tricks," he murmured. The sea answered by holding the stars more clearly, smoothing its surface until the reflections sharpened. It was not imitation. It was conversation. The ship responded too. Her lanterns dimmed slightly, understanding the night's desire for subtlety. Their glow remained warm but restrained, allowing starlight to dominate. The deck fell into gentle shadow, etched faintly by silver outlines. Captain Serene felt a quiet awe settle within him, not overwhelming, not humbling, but steady. He had witnessed this alignment before, though never quite the same way twice. The stars never reflected identically, and neither did the sea remember in repetition. The waves beneath the ship lifted and fell in slow rhythm, breathing in time with his own chest. He adjusted his stance slightly, aligning himself with the motion, allowing balance to find him rather than forcing it. From somewhere deep and distant came a faint, pulsing glow, remnants of the ocean's earlier remembrance. It lingered like an afterthought, a gentle echo, reinforcing the sense of continuity. Captain Serene walked from the helm to the bow, each step careful not to disturb the moment. He leaned forward, gazing down into the mirrored sky. For a brief instant, it felt as though he stood suspended between two infinities, belonging fully to neither yet welcomed by both. He saw familiar constellations reflected below, their shapes bending slightly with the water's motion. Others he did not recognize at all, patterns formed only in reflection, stars arranged into meanings that existed nowhere else. "You are generous tonight," he said softly. The sea responded by breathing a little deeper, waves lifting just enough to remind him of movement without breaking the reflection. The stars above remained steady, patient observers. The wind was nearly absent now, present only as a suggestion. It brushed Captain Serene's cheek once lightly, then moved on. He felt no chill from it, only acknowledgement. Time loosened further. Minutes stretched or perhaps folded. And Captain Serene found himself thinking not of journeys past or future, but of the simple act of standing here, witnessing. He had learned long ago that such moments could not be stored or repeated. They existed only while attention held them. The ship creaked softly, a single sound, then fell silent again. Her timbers warmed beneath Captain Serene's boots, holding the calm like a shared breath. A single star above brightened momentarily, its reflection below answering at once. Captain Serene watched the exchange, heart steady, mind clear. There was no message to interpret, no omen to decode. Some things were simply beautiful because they existed. The sea's breathing slowed further, waves flattening almost entirely. The reflected stars sharpened, growing brighter, until it seemed as though the ship sailed through space itself, suspended between lights. And Captain Serene laughed quietly, a sound full of warmth and disbelief. "You outdo yourself," he said to the night. The moon shifted slightly, sliding closer to the horizon. Its light deepened in color, turning from silver to pale gold. The path upon the water softened, blending seamlessly with the reflected stars until direction itself felt optional. The ship maintained her course regardless, guided by something older than sight. Captain Serene returned to the helm, hands resting lightly, trusting the balance of sky and sea to carry them forward. Gradually, the sea allowed motion to return. Waves lengthened, reflections blurred slightly, stars breaking into trembling fragments that danced and reformed with each breath of water. The world regained texture without losing grace. Captain Serene felt no sense of loss. Moments like this were not meant to last. Their value lay in their passing, in the way they shaped memory without demanding permanence. The reflected stars faded, leaving behind only moonlight and moving water. Above, the sky remained vast and clear, stars steady and bright. The ship sailed on, her wake gentle, her presence accepted. And Captain Serene stood quietly, feeling the afterglow of alignment settle into something like peace. The night had shown him itself fully, without reservation. And still, the voyage continued. A gentle storm and the test of a quiet heart. The first sign was not wind, nor wave, but pressure. And Captain Serene felt it in his ears, in the subtle tightening of air that hinted at change long before the sea gave it form. The stars above remained bright, but their clarity sharpened, as though the sky itself were drawing breath. Serenity's wake responded by lowering her tone, timbers settling, sails shifting ever so slightly without instruction. This was not a storm that arrived with anger. It approached with restraint. The moon slipped behind a thin veil of cloud, dimming just enough to soften the silver upon the water. The sea's breathing deepened, waves lifting a little higher, falling a little slower. The rhythm remained calm, but its weight increased like a thoughtful pause before speech. Captain Serene stood at the helm, unmoving, his posture relaxed yet attentive. He did not brace. He did not prepare for battle. This was not a storm to be challenged. It was a storm to be met. The wind arrived in gentle layers, brushing past the ship in slow, measured passes. It carried no howl, no sharp edge, only persistence. Sails responded at once, filling with quiet confidence, their fabric whispering softly as they adjusted. Rain followed, not in sheets, but in careful drops that tapped against wood and canvas like patient fingers. Each drop landed with purpose, darkening the deck, cooling the air. As the lanterns glowed warmer in response, their light deepening into amber pools. Captain Serene smiled faintly. "Easy," he murmured. The ship agreed. Waves grew taller now, lifting the bow, lowering it again with unhurried strength. The motion was steady, predictable, requiring trust rather than force. Captain Serene kept one hand upon the helm, not steering so much as listening, allowing the ship to follow the sea's language. This was the test, not of skill, but of restraint. Long ago, Captain Serene had believed storms existed to be mastered. He had learned over many winters that some storms asked only for patience. To rush, to overcorrect, to impose will upon water that knew its own course. These were the true dangers. The rain thickened slightly, beads forming along the rail, gathering at the edges of the deck before slipping away. Captain Serene felt the cool damp seep through his coat, refreshing rather than chilling. His breath rose steady, matching the ship's rhythm. Thunder murmured far off, distant and subdued, like a reminder rather than a warning. Lightning did not follow. The sky kept its composure. The ship climbed a larger wave, paused at its crest for a heartbeat, then descended smoothly. Captain Serene allowed the motion, knees bending, body aligned. He felt no fear, only awareness. "You're doing well," he said quietly to the ship, to the sea, perhaps to himself. The storm listened. Wind shifted direction slightly, testing balance. Captain Serene adjusted the helm by a fraction, trusting the ship to handle the rest. She responded flawlessly, her hull cutting through water with calm assurance. Rain softened again, returning to a gentle fall. The lanterns reflected in wet wood, their light doubling, turning the deck into a quiet constellation of gold. Captain Serene glanced upward. The clouds thinned briefly, revealing stars still present, still watching. The storm had not come to erase them, only to move beneath their gaze. The sea's motion began to slow, waves lengthening once more. Wind eased, rain lightened, pressure released. The storm had said what it came to say. Captain Serene felt the shift and exhaled slowly. "Well met," he said. The ship sailed on, stronger for the encounter, her timbers humming softly with satisfaction. The storm drifted past, never having raised its voice, never having demanded surrender. The moon re-emerged, pale and calm, casting fresh silver across the water. The night resumed its steady breathing. Captain Serene stood quietly, heart unshaken, trust affirmed. The test had not been of courage nor of strength. It had been of stillness. And stillness, he had learned, was something he carried well. Candle Crescent, we approached the quiet threshold. Section 9, the harbor that appeared only at midnight. Midnight did not announce itself with bells or chimes. It arrived as a feeling, a gentle settling of the world, as though everything had found its proper place and grown still within it. The moon hovered low now, full and luminous, casting a softened glow that felt less like light and more like invitation. Captain Serene sensed the change before the sea revealed it. The water ahead smoothed further, its surface flattening into something reflective and deliberate. The wind quieted completely, leaving the sails to rest in a calm, attentive posture. Serenity's wake slowed, not from resistance, but from recognition. Ahead, faint shapes emerged. At first, they seemed like shadows, slightly darker patches within moonlit silver. Then lines appeared, subtle but precise, forming curves and edges too ordered to belong to open sea alone. Lantern lights flickered into being, one by one, warm and steady, outlining a shape both impossible and familiar, a harbor. It rose from the water as if it had always been there, simply waiting for the correct hour. Stone piers extended outward, their surfaces pale with frost. Mooring posts stood ready, ropes coiled neatly at their bases. Lanterns lined the walkways, their flames unwavering despite the absence of wind. Captain Serene felt a deep, quiet recognition bloom within him. "So," he said softly, "it is this night." The ship answered by angling gently toward the harbor mouth, her bow aligning perfectly with the opening between the stone arms. No current pulled her in, no force guided her. She entered as one enters a familiar room. The water within the harbor was perfectly still, holding the moon's reflection like polished glass. Every lantern doubled itself upon the surface, creating a quiet symmetry that made direction feel optional. Sound behaved differently here. 2 footsteps imagined rather than heard, the ship's movement absorbed rather than echoed. Captain Serene guided Serenity's wake alongside an empty pier. The ship slowed further, then stopped, settling into place without the need for ropes. She rested as though she had been expected. And Captain Serene stepped onto the stone, boots meeting frost-cool surface. The air here felt warmer, though no source of heat was visible. It carried the scent of old wood, stone, and something like memory made gentle. He turned back to his ship, resting a hand briefly upon her rail. "Stay," he said quietly. The ship hummed once, content. Captain Serene walked along the pier, lantern light following him without casting shadow. The harbor stretched inward, revealing narrow streets paved with stone, buildings low and old, their windows dark yet welcoming. Snow lay undisturbed along the edges, untouched by footprint or wind. This was not abandonment, it was pause. At the center of the harbor stood a clock tower, its face unmarked by numbers. The hands pointed nowhere, yet the structure felt complete. Captain Serene approached it slowly, feeling the weight of the hour settle around him. Midnight belonged here. He listened. The harbor spoke not in sound, but in presence. It remembered arrivals and departures, hellos and goodbyes that had passed quietly, without record. It held them without burden, offering rest rather than judgment. Captain Serene felt a gentle release within himself, a loosening he had not known he carried. "You keep them safe," he said softly. The lanterns brightened slightly in response. He stood there for some time, or perhaps no time at all, allowing the stillness to surround him. This harbor did not ask him to stay, nor did it hurry him away. It existed simply as an offering, a reminder that rest, too, was part of the voyage. Eventually, Captain Serene turned back toward the ship. The moon remained full, patient, hovering just above the harbor's edge. The lanterns glowed steadily, their reflections unbroken. He stepped aboard Serenity's wake once more, the deck welcoming him as if he had never left. The ship stirred gently, ready. As he took the helm, the harbor began to soften. Stone blurred slightly at the edges. Lanterns dimmed, not extinguishing, but withdrawing. The water beyond the piers resumed its gentle motion. Captain Serene guided the ship forward. She moved smoothly, leaving no wake within the harbor. As they passed between the stone arms, Captain Serene glanced back. The harbor remained for a heartbeat longer, whole and luminous. Then it was gone. Open sea stretched behind them, moonlight unbroken, stars steady above. There was no sign the harbor had ever been there, no ripple, no shadow, no memory upon the water, except within him. Captain Serene felt rested, complete, ready. Midnight had given its gift, and dawn, he knew, was no longer far. Dawn beyond the voyage, peace beyond the tide. Dawn did not break the night, it unfolded it. The stars did not vanish when morning approached. They softened, retreating gently into the pale blue as if satisfied with their vigil. The moon lingered longest, thinning into silver memory before yielding the sky to light. Winter still held the air, crisp and clean, but something warmer moved beneath it now, an assurance rather than a temperature. Captain Serene stood at the helm as he had through countless nights, yet this morning felt different. The sea no longer whispered questions. It offered answers without words. Serenity's wake sailed forward through a calm that was neither stillness nor motion, but harmony. The sails caught the first breath of dawn wind, glowing faintly as sunlight touched frost-threaded canvas. The ship no longer creaked with age. She sighed with contentment. Ahead, the horizon changed color, not sharply. Not suddenly. Gold seeped into blue. Rose warmed the silver edge of cloud, and the sea mirrored it all with quiet devotion. The winter sun lifted slowly, deliberately, as though mindful of every soul who might be watching. Captain Serene felt no urgency to steer. The ship knew where she was going now. For the first time in many years, he allowed himself to rest both hands on the rail and simply look. Memories rose not as burdens, but as companions. Storms crossed and survived. Harbors found and lost. Faces remembered without ache. Voices no longer calling, yet still present in the way certain stars aligned or certain winds turned warm. He realized then that the voyage had never been about distance. It had been about becoming light enough to arrive. The sea ahead brightened, revealing something extraordinary. Not land in the common sense, but a shoreline shaped by intention rather than geography. Snow-dusted hills rose gently from the water, their contours softened by morning mist. Stone structures appeared, old and welcoming, built not to impress but to endure. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, pale against the dawn. A home, perhaps, or simply a place where journeys were allowed to end. Serenity's wake slowed as she approached, her bow parting the water with reverence. The tide guided her inward, not pulling, not pushing, inviting. Captain Serene felt no fear. As he guided the ship toward a simple wooden pier where frost clung like lace and lanterns still burned, though daylight had come. A few figures stood waiting, not waving, not calling, just present. Their faces were calm, familiar in a way that required no names. The ship settled alongside the pier, finally still. Captain Serene tied the final rope himself. His hands did not tremble. When he stepped onto the pier, the cold stone felt solid and kind beneath his boots. The air smelled of snow, wood smoke, and beginnings. He turned back once more to look at Serenity's wake. She gleamed softly in the morning light. "You carried me well," he said. The ship answered with a gentle creak, a sound like gratitude. Captain Serene smiled. There was nothing more to seek, nothing left unfinished. The night had given him mystery, the moon had given him guidance, and the voyage, long and winding, had given him peace. As the sun climbed higher, winter sparkled rather than bit. The sea behind him shimmered, endless yet complete. Ahead lay warmth, rest, and stories that no longer needed telling to be true. Captain Serene walked forward unhurried. Behind him, the tide erased the ship's reflection, but not its meaning. The voyage had ended. The serenity remained.
There's nothing else you need to listen for now. Just let your breathing stay slow and easy. If you're still awake, that's okay. And if you're drifting off, let yourself go gently. I'll be right here next time. Rest well and good night.